That's his last time.
All right, I think it's close enough, 7 o'clock. We'll start here. Just call this public meeting to order. And Bob, will you read the notice? Okay.
Please take notice there will be a meeting on Thursday, June 5th at 7 o'clock to review the existing regulations and discuss enhancements in the Houston County zoning ordinance. This meeting will take place at the historic courthouse, Commissioner Doom City, Caledonia. Proposed amendments include the following sections: Section 3, 5, 6, 7, 11, 12, 14, 18, 19, 29, 35, and 37. Houston County Planning Commission by Bob Scanlon, advertised May 21st. Well, that's, I guess that's the reason we're here tonight. We spent, I think we started looking into these changes last fall, October. I think we had the first study committee that got together. And that evolved because of, over the last several years, questions come up as far as what the board or planning commission could do to make things in the county a little different, or changes as they come about for development, different types of permits. For instance, we introduced interim use permits last fall. And we've expanded on that. We also defined a few things a little differently, including campgrounds. And so that's, we'll just go into it from there, I guess. I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if you want me to just go through section by section, or?
I think we will. We'll just go down through each change that we made and see if there's any discussion on each change. If anybody's got any suggestions, or and then we'll maybe approve the whole thing at the end.
Okay.
We'll just go through. So if you go to section 3 under rules and definitions.
Yeah. As I said, interim uses were introduced last year. We didn't put that under section 3, although it should have been. In our ordinance, we now have 3. Well, we did have 2 types of permits. You had a permitted use of a land use, and you had a conditional type land use. This interim land use, which was added last fall, is basically something that you can put a time limit on. Or, for instance, the sale of a parcel will terminate the use of that use for that particular piece of land. So we did add that on page 5 under our 3 uses now. We do now have 3 uses: permitted, conditional, and interim use. And there's a definition there that talks about it. So, and keep going. We added a definition for a campground. On page 11. We had quite a bit of discussion on that. The question had come up over the years, what constitutes campground? Is it commercial necessarily or not? But I guess I'll just read what we come up with here. Campgrounds means any area, whether privately or publicly owned, used on a daily, nightly, or longer basis for the accommodation of 5 or more tents or recreational camping vehicles, free of charge or for compensation. Campgrounds do not include youth camps, industrial camps, U.S. Forest Service camps, State Forest Service camps, state wildlife management areas, or state-owned public access areas, which are restricted in use to picnicking and boat landing, temporary holding areas for self-contained recreational vehicles created adjacent to motorsports facilities. That definition is taken from Department of Health, Minnesota Department of Health. We basically adopted what they had. Moving on.
Let's see. Is that all for section 3 then?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments on those changes for rules and definitions in section 3 that we talked about? Okay, no comments? Okay, move on to section 5, for permits.
Okay, we had some discussion on what to do, in cases where projects are started. And for instance, we had a couple of them come up in the last year or two that included excavation projects in bluff-type areas where, the slopes are vulnerable to a lot of erosion. And what we can do, come back and work with the owner, possibly institute fines and things like that. The old ordinance had, we could, subject the owner or contractor to a $75 per day fine, although I checked with several counties and it's tough to fine them. You end up taking it through the court system is really the only way to do it. We can't, through the zoning office, institute a fine. So we discussed it and we ended up changing it up a little bit. Basically what we turned to is triple the application fee, and then, then they'd still have to come in and get their permits if required, or go ahead and put, tear the building down, move it, get your permits, for instance, or excavate it back to the original ground elevation. All those types of things are options, and so that's what we ended up doing. We did keep the wording in where if you have a project that's less than $1,000 in value, you might be exempt, tripling the fee. So if someone puts a deck on their house and they didn't know they needed a permit, we're just going to take it easy on them. That stuff happens. They realize that. So, okay.
I think, were we going to send out a letter to some contractors too?
Yeah, I know we talked about it. I haven't done it yet. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I know the soil and water office
I
has a
think Soil and
contract.
Water was gonna help with that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, no, so,
Occasionally get a contractor start a project, without the permits, without checking for the permits.
Mhm.
Most of them are very good. They do check, but occasionally you get some that do, and just a reminder letter to them.
right. No, that's a good idea.
Okay, so are there any other changes in the permits here, section 5? Doesn't look like it.
Well, yeah, just some minor ones, like on the next page, 34 was,
Temporary use.
yeah, we added, temporary use permit is now under interim use, which makes sense because, but, for instance, that's for like a hot mix plant, 90-day permit, that goes beyond the 90 days. Like if they're interested in keeping a hot mix plant up for a year, that would be under interim use permit. We can give an over-the-counter basic zoning permit for a 90-day, like a hot mix plant for a road project. But anything over that, the ordinance is specific that they should have come in for a conditional use permit in the past, but we're going to change that to an interim use. Because we can tell definitely when that would end. So,
See, these interim permits can be given to an individual, and they don't go with the land, or conditional use goes with the land. So that'd be a key thing for the county if we can do some of these things with an interim permit rather than conditional permit.
right. It's kind of a nice tool.
Okay, any questions on this section, on section 5?
I had,
Yep, go ahead.
I had one on page 36 at 604. The sentence didn't make sense to me for some
The
reason.
sentence doesn't, it needs to be fixed.
Oh, I think we just talked about that. We
Yeah.
changed that, yeah.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, we'll get, that's under,
Invalidation of permit.
yeah, under conditional use permits. That's section 6. Okay, go ahead to section 6 and 5.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to change that to an approved conditional use permit shall expire if the use approved has not commenced within 9 months.
Okay. I knew it was missing something. So.
We had, unless in there, but this kind of makes more sense. So
Just put in the word.
after expired, put,
If not,
and after has not.
expire if the approved use has not
It has
commenced.
not.
Yeah.
Let.
And take the unless out, scratch out, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, yep. Then going down for criteria for granting conditional use permits under number 6, change the wording there to have a little different meaning, that it's more of a question we can ask of an applicant, have the potential pollution hazards been addressed. For instance, if someone's applying for a manure storage basin, was it engineered, did they do their soil borings, those types of things. So things that we can ask that help make a better decision. Number 12 there, we added the letter T for that. So, moving on. Page 40. There again, same sentence under number 6 there, just different part of the ordinance. This happens to be under section 7. Yeah, that's under interim use permits. So.
Okay, under section 6 then, conditional use permits, any questions there or comments besides that correction we made there? And of course, the reason we invalidate them after 9 months if you don't start to use is we don't want somebody inventorying conditional use permits or getting permits and not acting on them. All right, going on to section 7 then.
Yep, page 40 there, criteria for granting an interim use permit. Same type of deal under number 6. Change that to mirror what we did under the conditional use permit criteria. And number 12, added a T there. So that's it for section 7.
Okay, section 11.
What page is that again?
Section 11.
50.
Yeah.
This is when we're talking about the planning commission term limits. If you remember, last fall, the county board went ahead and changed some of that wording, but they asked that we look at that again and further discuss any proposals on that. Maybe I'll just read what we got in yellow there. The planning commission shall consist of 5 to 7 members appointed by the board of commissioners. Members shall represent different geographical areas of the county and, if possible, represent at least 4 commissioner districts. If townships administer their own zoning ordinance, those townships are free to set their own term limits. And that's what we're proposing there.
There was a little more added on the back to it. 52.
Oh, yep. Yeah, under number 1, under subdivision 2, you can see what was taken out there. See, the problem is that when the county board adopted it, they didn't put it in the ordinance, so I didn't know how to write it, because it's not in our ordinance, but it's law. So if you go to number 1, on page 52, we also added under, in the yellow there, term of office is 3 years, may be continued in 3-year terms for a maximum of 3 consecutive terms equaling 9 years. Past members are required to sit out 1 full term before being reappointed for a position. These limits are at the discretion of the board. And you can see we don't talk about anything about applying for the job or anything like this. It's an appointment. So that's a little different than what the county board was talking about last fall. So if anyone wants to discuss that.
Yeah, is there any discussion on that? Any questions, discussion?
There's a spelling error in that site. It says
Yeah, site.
So-
Take the E off the site and sit out.
Teresa's got it.
Okay, Teresa.
I think Dana brought this back to the Board of Commissioners, and we basically agreed that that's the way it should be, an appointment, not a interview process.
Full-blown interview process, no.
It always has been, and I think
Yeah.
it's worked. You're
And
not
Dana
applying
brought
for
that
a
back
job,
to us
it's-
about it.
It's a service.
About a month.
Right,
It's a
exactly.
public service job.
Right.
yeah.
And he actually explained it very well, and, you know, so I think you did good on that.
Now, the one thing we didn't address is the years of service getting down to
Which doesn't
too
need
old.
to be in the ordinance.
I don't think so, no. You're gonna have to deal with that. The county board's gonna have to deal with that as it comes up.
And I think Dana addressed that to the board too, so. But
Okay.
that's not part of the ordinance.
No.
No.
So is there any other comment on the Section 11 Planning Commission here? Go ahead, you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I mean, I did know that you guys had addressed this because there was a lot of discussion at the last meeting. And there's nothing written in here, you know, we talked about, right, right, Rich? So it just.
And it should be in the ordinance, I don't
Okay,
think so.
that's fine. but
It's a
it just-
one-time deal. and then-
Yeah, I mean, so
Yeah.
that's fine, but there was a lot of discussion and now it probably doesn't belong in the ordinance, but we just like to know what happened. And thank you for you guys for addressing it.
Okay. Any other questions on Section 11 Planning Commission? Or comments? All right, then we'll go to Section 12, the Board of Adjustment.
On that part,
Or anyway,
the statute, state statute changed on how boards of adjustments can look at variance requests, and that's been discussed up in the legislature a couple times in the last 10 years here, and this is the latest version of what they required. Now, in the past, what they required out of county board or boards of adjustments was that there had to be a real hardship as to why they would allow a variance to, for instance, a setback. So they backed it off a little bit, and now they use the term practical difficulty a lot when describing whether a board can go ahead and grant or a variance or not. So we went ahead and adopted, or that's what we're proposing here, is to amend the state's wording on there. So, and you can see we're taking out the old on that too. So,
Okay, is there any question on new guidelines for granting variances? It's spelled out pretty clearly. It tells you what you can use and what it's supposed to be. It's defined pretty well.
zoning board friends from Crescent, and that they call this the get out of jail free card.
Right, but if you read it, it's not quite that open.
No.
It talks about economic considerations alone do not constitute practical difficulties. It has to stay in line with what's already been approved, and it can't be for a use. It can be something that can be measured.
right.
Yeah. So is there any questions, comments on that, anyone?
I have no problem with it. It's just
Okay.
it's a lot more lenient than what I think it was before.
Okay, section 14, the agricultural protection district.
Under that, most of the changes there had to do with removing some of our conditional uses and adding them to a list of interim uses. Our list of interim uses up until now, and like I said, that was only adopted just last fall, included only a non-commercial family cabin. So we've expanded on that list quite a bit. But I'll just go down through the conditional uses and we'll talk about what we're proposing to take out.
So section 14. What page is
Page
that?
65 is where I'm at. Under conditional
Okay.
uses,
Yeah.
we're taking out number 5, bituminous plants. Removing number 13, exhibitions. Number 17, home occupations. 27, temporary ag employee housing.
Were these removed to put into the interim list? Is that
Yeah.
why we- Can you refresh my memory? I think that's why we did that. We
Right.
thought they belonged somewhere else.
Yeah, for instance, like temporary ag employee housing, just the name alone, temporary, tells us, well, that's not a conditional use, because conditional uses are
It's been
permanent.
so long since
And so you're right, those are, we're kind of switching them over to our interim use. And we're also doing number 28, commercial outdoor recreation area. And so I'll just go down through our new interim uses that will be added along with our non-commercial family cabins. And we're adding number 2, manufactured home, which is temporary for family members based on medical hardship. And that's got to be a kind of a nice one. We've always used the catch-all phrase, other uses under conditional uses, and now it's going to be nice to have a definition there for it. And that's one thing that was kind of nice when we were going on through this. We used examples from a couple other counties, I believe Dodge and Fillmore, I think, had existing ordinances. And Sherburne County as well, I think, had a pretty good ordinance that we went ahead and pulled a lot of these ideas from. So going down through number 3, activities requiring rural isolation. We couldn't really come up with any examples when we were talking about it, but it might be nice to just have that there in case there's some type of land use or activity somebody's proposing that we really don't have a spot for it. Maybe this would fit. So
Actually, I think we've had some would have been good to have in there, for example, probably something with the fireworks.
oh yeah, that might have been too. Yep.
That'll be a good one to have, that we can, but,
Or obstacle course, or
yeah,
paint gun arena, or
Yes.
whatever.
limit it to the individual for a
Right.
specific time
Right.
out in the rural area, yeah.
Yep.
So it's good to have a catch-all there.
4, auto mechanic and body repair shop. We put our level 1, level 2 home occupations under number 5 that used to be conditional use. And same with our temporary ag employee housing, are now interim. Our second farm dwelling used to be a permitted use, now that's an interim use. And we had an issue with that. We're still working with the owner by Money Creek, an example where, because it was under a simple zoning permit for this second farm dwelling, you know, they did quit farming, they sold the house to a third party. 14 years later, they want to now sell the house, and they're finding out it's not a compliant lot, and it was the illegal split. Well, if we would have had this under a conditional use, or no, actually interim use, there would have been something recorded when they did a title search, and this would have flagged something for that original buyer. So that's going to be kind of nice to maybe help prevent some of those issues in the future. Number 8, occasional special use. Not sure what that is, but might come up handy. Number 9, recreational lodging activities. I can think of a couple places right now that might fall under that. Number 10, temporary solid waste collection or recycling operation, and that would be, privately owned, I assume, not the county-owned drop sites or anything like that. Number 11, your startup business, and good definitions for all of these that we can go to. 12, bituminous plants, and 13, exhibitions, and 14, commercial outdoor recreations. All were pulled from conditional uses and now placed under an interim use. And of course, we added our catch-all other uses there. Nothing else fits that problem.
You gotta have one of them.
Yes, we do.
Which one do you think you've seen all about?
Well, we haven't seen them all
We
yet.
haven't seen them all yet. Keeps changing.
Where were you going to put the lodges in? What section?
That was number 9, recreational lodging activity. Wouldn't it be?
So we want to talk about, where do we talk about the fact that they need to have approval from the fire marshal, from the health department, and stuff like that?
Yeah, we talked.
Is it in here?
Well, that would be under state regulations, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Everything we approve, that's gotta be
State requirements as well.
local, state, and federal.
I'm not sure it's required, the fire marshal, is it? I mean, we had that one in front of us, and we were all looking at each other, what's required? It might be nice to have it in the ordinance, that we know what's required. We couldn't tell him what he needed to do.
Right. It's up to him though to do it.
I know it is, but he's everybody's lawyer, and he's asking us, okay, what do we need to do to be compliant? And we're sitting in judgment, and we don't have written down what he needs to do to be compliant. So, I mean, we knew that, you know, I'm just asking now, if that should be in there, if they should have approval. If he's going to do lodging, he should have approval from the State Department of Health and from the fire marshal, that he's compliant with the codes.
The certificate insurance, they're going to require some type of fire safety. Don't you think?
Not
Through
necessarily.
your insurance?
Not necessarily. They may not know exactly what's going on out there.
We could add it under, as letter G, you know.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think that if you're going to have lodging, you should have fire marshal inspect it, and you should have Department of Health weigh in on it.
Okay.
And if they say it's exempt, fine, but there should be something from the Department of Health.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because the Department of Health did look at the
Yeah.
other things, and that was a good thing.
Good point.
Okay, we'll add that as letter G under number 9.
There's two things.
I'll just word it as applicant must meet fire marshal and Department of Health specifications.
All right, everybody know where we're at on that? Okay, is there any comment then on,
Dan?
yes?
Going back to that number 3, activities you're going to rural isolation, you got a certificate of insurance. Well, what they're going to ask is, what are you talking, or what kind of insurance, or how much, or is there anything spelled out in here on that?
Yeah, that's all you're looking at is right there.
So,
It's personal property, they can insure it for whatever they want to.
yeah, if we're at, why would we ask for a certificate of insurance?
We don't ask it for anything else like
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying, I mean,
Yeah.
and then if it comes in and we're going to be asking, they're going to wonder, or ask us, what are you talking about insurance, or are you talking any kind of, am I supposed to bond, or am I going to, what are you asking for insurance?
That's a good question. I see that there too, and now I'm wondering why.
It was just in the wording from
It was?
Sherburne County.
Okay, all right.
We left it in there.
All right.
I mean, personal property, I mean, it's their deal.
Right.
If they want to insure it, they can insure it. If they don't want it.
See, the reason
You
you,
lose it as tough cookies.
Yeah.
you know.
well, the reason you'd normally ask for a certificate of insurance is to protect the county. But I'm not sure what the county's liability would be
But
here.
that's what I'm wondering, I mean, what are you trying to, you know, what are you getting at right here, or trying to accomplish, and then, you know, asking for insurance, certificate of insurance, but I can see sometimes where you would, you know, just to protect the counties. But,
I think it's a very good point. I don't think it's required here, in my own opinion, because, again, a certificate of insurance would just be to protect whoever's asking for it. And, I don't know, I can't, I mean, if we approve some activity out there under this ordinance, I don't know why we would be asking for a certificate of insurance to protect the county.
It says may be required, so
A civic insurance is submitted to the county.
yeah, it
under
is
three.
submitted.
Under number 3.
Let's use this.
What's that?
Let's use Terry's wording, may be required, if they're, like,
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, we could do that. May be
You have to
required by,
realize
a certificate of insurance may be required by the county.
you can always waive it if they see no reason for it.
Use it.
Protect you if there ever was a reason that you thought that's what you would have had that.
Well, you said something about you're looking at covering, like, say, put things like paintball, or these courses, or some kind of, like, say, a four-wheeling course or something. Of course, that insurance is up to the landowner to cover himself too, though, but
Yeah, he's gonna want to be insured.
I can see where it'd be good to ask for it, but then you're gonna get Bob checking all the time that it's come up, you know, maybe there, yeah, how you gonna enforce?
If we're giving them a permit to do this, it's not our business or occupation. We're just permitting them to start a business or
That's what I mean.
operation. And if they don't have insurance, I mean, that's entirely up to them. It's their liability, they're running the business. The county shouldn't be liable for it
Right.
at all.
Just take the whole
Take it out of there?
I think take it all.
I like the idea of keeping it may be required by the county, because if somebody did get hurt, they could say, well, the county permitted us to do this.
Well, yeah.
You know, may be required, would cover us.
And it was a hazardous thing, maybe we could put that on as a condition, that you carry insurance and have it.
Or just put may be required by the county. You know,
I
if
think
it's a
maybe
dangerous,
would be a good thing.
I don't know.
What's that?
I think maybe required.
All right, with that gives us.
It gives you the option.
It gives
Yeah.
us the
All right,
option.
let's change that then. Civic insurance may be required by the county.
Okay.
Now, it shows up in more than one place there, that statement.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's on,
And a few other ones.
Well, we better go down through here one by one then. Okay, under number 9, too.
yeah, recreational lodging.
Well, now there it does say may.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it does say
that's
may
what
be required.
Okay.
I don't believe it hurts to have it in there.
Ignore it if it's not required or not necessary. But gives you
Yeah, I guess I never placed them here.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know, you want to add it to number 14 then?
Sure could.
Motocross, drag racing, some dangerous activity there. I don't know if it'd ever come up, but maybe you could add it.
I'd say it's a good idea.
it's probably something you maybe never asked for, but you have it there if, to address it if it's necessary.
So we're going to add it to number 14. huh?
Good.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's it under section 14.
Okay, any other questions under section 14, conditional and interim uses? Okay, the next one is our limited industry district, number 18.
Yeah, we added an interim use there under limited industry district.
What page?
86.
86. We're gonna add adult uses. Since our adult uses are restricted to an industrial district, it made sense to put that under our limited industry district as an interim use. So we made that change, and then that also involves the numbering change on the rest of that section, so pretty minor changes there. Same with section 19. There again, that's an industrial district. We added adult uses and changed the numbering to accommodate that addition to the rest of the ordinance. That's on page 90 and 91.
Okay, and section 29 is, page around there. Let's see.
And 44,
144?
yeah.
Well, I think the first change was on 152. We're changing the word moving to zoning permit. We don't have moving permits in Houston County, we only have zoning permits, so just a clerical change there on that. And I guess that's it.
Okay. Then section 35, adult use.
There, when we adopted this ordinance back in '04, we basically copied and pasted Waseca County and just put it right in the ordinance there. And I don't know if anybody read it. Did you read it, Rick? I didn't read it.
This one that's X-rated?
Yeah. But
Just the single X or the triple X?
195.
Well, I was a little upset you were looking at it, but
So the problem with that is
I
that
haven't read it. I think it's good enough. There's so many stipulations in there. But,
Dana's gonna be in charge of watching all the
For all the other sections, I wrote down page numbers, and this one I put the whole thing.
You got a question on the whole thing?
No, just to prove it.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of,
we took out the table of contents because we already have our table of
Yeah.
contents. We changed the numbering to fit the numbering in the rest of the ordinance. The one change we did add was that we put it under an interim use. So,
So it doesn't go with the land.
right,
Right.
it goes with the current owner operator.
Yeah, I
And
just
then
need-
it has to be in an industrial district, and they also need a license from the county auditor. So there's, and a background check. So there's all kinds of hoops to jump through if you want to do one of these adult uses. So,
You won't qualify.
well, maybe I call them. Well, the background check. Yeah, there you go. Check it out.
Okay, then section 37 is subdivision ordinance, and Bob, you give us a background on that.
yeah, I had this reviewed once again. I had several questions come up. One from the county recorder on recording of plats. Bev Bauer wanted a minor change there. Also, while I was doing it, I had Brian Pogozinski, the county engineer, and Dick Walter, the county surveyor, look it over and make sure that everything's up to date as far as the definitions, the wording, is it still accurate in how we're describing how to do plats? And so Dick had several additions. One was under page 6, a plat format, and he decided he'd like to add that under definitions. Just going through here, he had several of them. The next page 7, plat should be prepared by a land surveyor who is registered with the state of Minnesota, shall comply with the provisions of the state statutes in this ordinance. Just to kind of spell it out a little better. Going through it here.
I think we removed page 5, hard shells.
Oh, was it?
That was a crossed out term that
Oh,
no
yeah.
longer is viable or whatever.
Yep. Good idea. About that. Page 12, just a little word change on that one. Should be monumented.
Page 14.
Yep, page 14. That's a change in how the septic system requirements have changed over the years. We now require a soil test with a soils verification, not so much the percolation test anymore, so that's just an update on that. Page 16 was what Beth Bauer was asking for as far as a change on the county recorder part of the recording of a final plat. In her office, it goes in a cabinet and an envelope, not a book and a page, so just a little change on that. And some changes there in 16 as well. The county engineer suggested a 66-foot instead of 60-foot local street and road on page 17, because that's what most of them are, 66. he was puzzled why it was ever 60. And then all the changes you see on pages 18 and 19 were his suggestions as well, under MnDOT requirements and design manuals that he works with on a daily basis, and the changes to our ordinance that would go along with that. Moving on, page 22 and 23, same type of deal there. Yep, same in 24 and 25, those were all, well, 24 was the county engineer's change. The one thing that I guess I brought up was the subdividers agreement, and the wording for that is, it starts on page 25. You know, the original ordinance talked about a subdividers agreement, but we never spelled it out, and we never held a subdivider to this, any type of an agreement. But the reason it's kind of nice to have is because our ordinance already talks about requiring a street. When a street is required in a subdivision, it's to be done when, I believe it's 60% of the houses are built or within 30 months of the subdivision starting. So the problem is, you get 30 months into something and, you know, the subdivider could be gone. He might have sold out or whatever. Well, then the street never gets built. So what I went ahead and did is I checked with other counties and ended up working quite a bit with Dodge County on their subdividers agreement. And what this does is kind of holds their feet to the fire as far as getting that street built. And it's going to require the county engineer doing the inspections on that street while it's built. It's going to tell them when it has to be built, and they've got to sign it. And that's recorded along with that final plat. So there's no skipping town or anything, so they know right away what's expected of them.
That's Exhibit A 32 and 33.
Yep, Exhibit A, yep. And so that's all new wording you see in yellow there, page 32 through 35. And,
We still have the county of Dodge on there, on
Right.
page 34. I think you need Houston.
oh, yep,
County
okay.
of Houston.
Good eye there.
That kind of puts him on the hook.
Might be just enough, let the subdivider off the hook.
Well, I know from previous subdivisions in our township, those roads are horrible that were put in there. Lots are all sold, the guy sticks the money in his pocket and he's gone.
Yeah.
And the roads to the townships, there's no drainage, no ditches. I mean, they're terrible. So you spend years and a lot of money improving them so they got drainage. And it's a good idea, a very good idea.
Oh, okay.
Rick, do you have a question?
Did I miss it, or does it say in here someplace on bonds?
I think it does. Let's see here.
Because that's the one thing we always had to hold over their head, was we always required that 1 1/4 times the amount.
That's still in there, we didn't take that out. That's all
Oh, here it is.
already, but we just.
Financial assurance, it's on page, bottom
It's on
of page
page
125.
25.
Yeah.
Because with that agreement, at least it spells out exactly what you gotta do, and this will, gives the highway engineer a good chance to take a look at all the improvements and come up with what's in the contract, come up with an estimate of what it's gonna cost and do.
Yeah.
Good.
There again, you're talking about something, if it's within 30 months, it's gonna be fairly applicable if that's an estimate from the county engineer, whereas 10 years later, maybe that estimate
Right.
isn't very good, so.
Well, normally the guy that's bond, he's paying interest on that all the time. They like to kind of push it then, because, you know, these subdivisions, the time you put in the roads, stormwater, everything, They got a chunk of money borrowed, so they kinda like to get it completed in a short time.
Okay, are there any other comments on these changes, proposed changes? Okay, this is just, we're not done yet. This group is coming forward now to the county commissioners, but we're still working on this urbanization district, you know, whether we're gonna go 2 miles out from a town, or whether we're gonna discard that and recommend going in another way, maybe go 3 miles out in one direction and not go out at all in the other direction. We're studying that. Bob's going to be doing a lot of work on that, meeting with the town boards and so forth. So that's because of maybe in the fall.
Do you want to address how you're planning on doing that, Bob?
Well, I want to meet with all the townships this summer, get on their agendas and just go to the board meetings. And just I'll bring maps with me of their township, and for instance, Caledonia Mayville Township, you know, borders Caledonia City. Where does the development, where do you foresee it in the future? Where don't you want to see it, things like that. So I want it to be the township's input more than mine, of course, because, you know, they're going to have to live with it. So that's the goal, is to get through that this summer and then come back, like say, this fall here with this group and probably hammer that out. So that's the goal.
Okay, at this point then, I would entertain a motion to approve these changes as amended. And whether you want to recommend that the commissioners pass them or...
Mr. Chairman, with this add this interim use permits to our ordinance, it's going to give a lot more opportunity to the citizens of this county. And I recommend that we approve the changes to our zoning ordinance.
Okay, we have a motion to recommend to approve them. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Glenn seconded. Okay, we have a motion to recommend that the changes be approved. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Okay, motion carries. So we recommend you pass them as amended at this point. Okay, I entertain a motion to adjourn. I believe that's it. There's no other comments, questions from anyone?
I just want to say, I think this group has done an awesome job working on this. I read through it and made notes all day, and I'm really impressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank the township people that showed up and for all their input that went into this study.
Really good.
There's a lot of people that were involved that are here, but everybody's input was a real good group to work with.
It really helped getting everyone's input and how this works. Yeah. Okay, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. Dana moved that we adjourn. Is there a second? Terry seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.